Are you ready?
Oh, man. Well, welcome everybody to the Parishscope. This is the newsletter that kind of functions as the arm of the newsletter that we send out via mail for St. John Sam Prairie. I'm Pastor Chris Sansom.
And I'm Casey Dreamus. I'm the creative worship director at Our Savior Lutheran.
Yeah, so we've faced a few technical issues. So like I just did the intro piece and I didn't hear any of it.
Oh,
So,
really?
Yeah, no. I heard absolutely none of it. But I could look at my little mic so I could tell it was going through, but I couldn't hear it at all. But that's okay. You know what? We're gonna trudge our way through. We haven't done this in a couple weeks, and honestly, a huge part of it was the technical issues that we're facing. All of a sudden, my soundboard wants to act all funny and strange and weird, and man, it was just causing us havoc last week to the point where we just kind of finally. And I'll be honest, I was the one that gave up. I was like, I'm done. We worked on it for like 20 minutes, and then I was like, yeah, I got to go to bed at some point. So, and especially when you start looking at it, and you're like, okay, so it's, we've been working on this 20 minutes, but when we record, it's like a good hour or so, and so it's like, well, I don't got that much time. Come on, now.
Yeah. At that point, it's like if we start now, it's going to be really late. So,
exactly. So we got a lot to kind of cover and talk about tonight, but I think the big thing is of course, we've just had a lot of news going on, and I think a lot of people are trying to kind of wade through some heavy waters with all of this. On September 10th, we had an actual political assassination, which we have not seen in this country in some time. I mean, we're thinking like, I think the thing of it is, here's the thing, like Charlie Kirk was not an official politician. It wasn't like he was going for office or something,
No.
he spoke though, a lot for Republicans, obviously the conservative side of things. And, was basically shot in the neck, from 200 yards away, in front of a ton of people. His own children and wife were there. I just can't even imagine that kind of horror. And obviously this sent a lot of shockwaves, from a cultural standpoint through our nation. We've seen a lot of people that have grieving and, really, just shocked and stunned by it all. We've seen people act poorly, where they'll make silly comments or, they'll basically, be almost happy and excited at his passing. Some people have lost their jobs, over their reactions and how they've done it. Jimmy Kimmel was taken off the air for a while, after he tried to blame it on the Republicans.
And he's back now, but he still has some affiliates that are refusing to air the show. I don't know if that's been resolved yet, but so he's lost I don't know. I think it's like 60% of where his show usually airs, live and not live, but on actual TV. So there's just a lot going on, a lot of debate on that, on whether this is some sort of like free speech, issue or what.
So before we get to like the theology of it, because again, the theology is important, and we'll actually certainly talk about that. Because hey, let's face it, like this is the Parishscope podcast, so we got to talk about theology. But but before we get that, I'd like to just kind of say that these are kind of some of the things that I've read about, heard about, know about, and you can do the like and the same, and then we can kind of at least kind of have a little bit of a foundation. So for those of you that don't know who Charlie Kirk is, my guess is you're living under a rock. Maybe
by now you've got to know.
Yeah, by now. He was kind of a conservative, right leaning, definitely right leaning. Basically, what he would do is he ran Turning Points USA, which is he'd go to college campuses and he would debate with the youth that were there. Um, and that's the way he did it, and he was very effective at what he did. A lot of people came to him as kind of very liberal and left leaning, and they kind of left that conversation, being impacted, and that's just not on top of that, you have the people that were listening and paying attention, and so I mean, he was very, very effective at what he was doing. Um, and so that's the kind of scenario uh, that we started. He's 31 years old. I think he had a wife and what, two kids? Was it two?
I think two kids, I believe.
Yeah, very young children. He's 31, so he's
Yeah.
very young children. Um, again, he was shot by a person who wrote some stuff on the bullets that were basically I know one of them said, "Hey, fascist, catch," stuff like that. He was living with his boyfriend, who was a man who was transitioning to becoming a woman. So trans ideology, but he did come from a very standard Republican home. So I know there was some conflict there in terms of what he was doing politically versus what the way he was raised politically. Um, I know that there's a lot of commentary that kind of goes back and forth on that, but
yeah, that's been one of those things in the news that has shifted back and forth. At first, they tried to say he was a radical right wing Republican, and then they tried to say, well, he's a radical left wing, liberal, and it just, things kept getting shifted around back and forth, and that's kind of what happened with Jimmy Kimmel. Is he was saying, oh, he was a Republican, and then that was at the time, I think that's the information he knew, and that wasn't the right information. And we've kind of, I don't know, I still, there, to be honest, there's still a part of me that I'm not even totally sure, what exactly, because it's gone back and forth so much that it's like, oh, what, I don't know.
I think from what I've read, like, he was very, all over the, like, Reddit and some of the underbellies of the internet, and they found a lot of his speech, his text. They actually found a lot of stuff on Discord. And he definitely kind of, from what I understand, he definitely leaned very left in his politics. And the basic scenario, so when it comes to Jimmy Kimmel, the basic rundown is that he claimed that it was a MAGA person. Um, Basically, a lot of people complained to the stations, are their parent companies, which was Nexstar and Sinclair. And basically, Nexstar finally said, "Hey, he either apologizes for some of his comments, or we're not going to air his program." And he refused to apologize and said, in fact, that he was going to double down on it. And so after that, that was kind of when everything was like a snowball kind of going down. But I also think that Sinclair and Nexstar have basically come out and said, to a degree anyway, they're not going to air his show. I think, and I listen to talk radio, and I've told you about that. And I know, like, on Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins, which is one of my favorites. And yes, it's definitely right leaning, but hey, it's one of those shows. But I think they got it right when they say, basically Nexstar and Sinclair are just kind of waiting to make sure he doesn't go crazy again. Saying some stuff. I have a feeling that his show will be back in a very short amount of time, to full power. That is on everything. But again, I do think it just highlights the fact that, again, it wasn't the government squeezing Jimmy Kimmel. It was basically the people squeezing the companies who squeezed Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah. Well, and the thing, this is one of the many social media postings that has really gotten me a little, like, I don't know what the right word is. It's just that there's people who keep talking about how this is a violation of free speech, and how they're trying to silence somebody. The thing that I get really annoyed with is the fact that he works for a company, and any job you'll ever have, every job I've ever had, there are requirements that they expect from employees. And some of that has to do with, if you're posting crazy stuff online and that is affecting the company, you might get let go. We actually had a guy who he said kind of, I don't think he was trying to sound racist, but I do completely understand why this individual took it as a very racist comment, because he did not word it well. And this guy started doing screenshots. He took a screenshot of this comment that one of our employees had, and he started posting it on every single comment section of every video we had. And the guy was just, I mean, he was just bound and determined to get this guy in trouble,
Yeah.
And so, that's a situation that my boss obviously kind of understood that he wasn't trying to say something, but it probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. And so he didn't like get fired or anything, but it was, those are things that do affect you. And like, I'm sure you, as a pastor, this all too well, that when you work for a church or a company, you are a reflection of that organization or that church. So if you're saying things that are just, not true, or you're just saying things that are really upsetting people, that might be the end of, you might be let go. And it doesn't mean you're getting, sentenced to death or silenced. It means that you got to find somewhere else to work. He could start a podcast. He can go on some other new or, station, and I'm sure somebody would probably hire him to do some show. And so that's my only thing. I get kind of frustrated when people are like, well, it's a violation of free speech. I'm like, no, that's just how the world works when you work for a company everywhere.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. And again, the whole Jimmy Kimmel thing, like I haven't paid too much attention to it because, honestly, like again, with all of this, ever since the event happened on September 10th, the meme and everything else, it's all just been going absolutely crazy, and trying to just wrap your head around it all. And everything gets so politicized so very fast. And you're just trying to, again, you're just trying to wrap your head around all of it. And I tried my best to go into this with a fairly open mind. Cause I mean, there were some people that were talking almost with glee, as at his death. And, and again, a lot of things were pointed out that he had said or something. And I'll be honest, I went and I looked up a good chunk of them. And when you watch the full videos, it's a lot of these memes are misrepresenting Mr. Kirk. I mean, let's face it, if he was just a ball of hate,
you would see it.
Well, he wouldn't have been successful on college campuses.
No,
he just wouldn't have been. And the fact of the matter is that he just wasn't. He was very polite, very courteous, even with people that he didn't like. Now I will, I preached a sermon, not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before. And I mean, I talked about this a little bit, but one of the things that, I think that as Christians, we do have to be careful of is, first of all, while Charlie Kirk was a Christian, and he very much, proclaimed and very much spoke about his Christianity and his beliefs, and I applaud him for that. It was awesome. And honestly, like listening to him speak about his faith is actually quite amazing. He did, I mean, just the fact that he would stand up in that kind of an environment and be so able and willing to do it really is quite stunning and amazing. He was very good and very effective at it. But he was also a politician, and he was a politician. He represented a political point, and I think we have to be cautious to make sure that we're applauding him for his Christianity, but not necessarily saying, well, whenever he was speaking politics, thus says the Lord, because that's just not the case. But the second thing we also have to watch out is anytime somebody dies, we have a tendency to look at the best things about them. And the reality is that even though Charlie Kirk was amazing, and I really mean that, like, regardless of where you sit on the aisle, like really go and listen to some of his debates and some of his talks, like the whole video, not just the TikTok clips, but like the good hour-long video or whatever. He was very kind and very courteous, but he still wasn't Jesus,
of course.
He wasn't perfect. There were some times he got upset. There were some times where maybe he said or worded things that maybe I wouldn't have preferred, or what have you. Like he was still a sinful human being. And I mean, he would have been the first to admit that, but I mean,
yes, he would.
Yeah. But he was definitely still a flawed creature.
Well,
and so I think it's important. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I've watched his stuff for a lot of years now. And so like I had someone at church, we did not, the pastor we had did not do a sermon about Charlie. He did not go into depth. All he did was towards the end of the service, he did say, we want to pray for the Kirk family, and that was it. And someone the next week they were talking to me and they go, well, I was a bit uncomfortable. And I was like, with what? And I kind of assumed I knew what it was, but they're just like, well, I just, they were talking about Charlie Kirk. I'm like, well, we prayed for his family. Is there a problem with that? And they go, well, I just don't really consider him a Christian. And I was like, but we're not the ones who judge that, are we? And he was like, well, no. I'm like, okay. So, let's make sure, because, the thing is, like, yeah, he's not perfect. And I mean, when you listen to the way people talk to him, the fact that he keeps us cool such a majority of the time is really admirable, because people are screaming some of the nastiest things to him. And yeah, every once in a while he does, there's every once in a while you see a response that he does that's a little snarky.
Yeah.
A little bit. But I also know, that person just cursed at him 15 times in a row, called him all these things, told him he was, an abusive, like he abused his wife or something. And it's like, it's hard to keep that cool.
Oh,
so like
you
said, he's not Jesus, of course. But he did give a pretty good example of what we should strive to try to do as he was striving to do it. Of course, he wasn't perfect though, like you said, but it's just, I don't know. It has been such a weird, couple weeks. Cause I didn't really think of myself as like a diehard Charlie Kirk fan by any means, but I watched a lot of his stuff, and I watched the whole clips. I watched like an hour-long debate or something. I might throw it up on my computer while I'm working on something. And, it's just to hear some of the snippets that people have taken and tried to turn that into like this, look how horrible he was. And it's like, I've seen that clip. I know what he said in that clip. You cut it, And I was joking with people that we have the saying, don't judge a book by its cover. And I'm like, it doesn't roll off the tongue as well, but I think we need to update and have another one that says, don't judge a book by the 30-second Facebook reel that someone edited with a certain agenda in mind and took it out of context. It's like, you really have to be careful, because with AI and with everything going around, man, people they can make anything look bad if they want to.
They really can. They really can.
But it is, I found it to be such a crazy time, because especially me being someone who does social media as a job, it is really wild. Like you brought up the people who were like celebrating it. And I was thinking about this because any self-respecting Illinoisan has been to the Lincoln Museum in Springfield. Yeah, and they have this hallway. Yeah, as one does. You got to get a picture with all the wax figures and everything. I even have a picture with the alleged John Wilkes Booth that they eventually took down. Anyway, they have a hallway there that is all the political cartoons at the time that were just horrible. I mean, they were awful towards Lincoln. And
they had like audio and stuff to it too, right?
Yeah. They had all sorts of stuff. It's crazy when you see how hated he was by certain people. And all I can think about is someday there is going to be a museum of Charlie Kirk. Someday there will be. And they are going to have a hallway with a bunch of little tablet screens. And it's just going to be reels and reels of these people celebrating and singing and dancing and going on and on about how horrible of a person he was. And I just think, man, you have just forever put your face on this. You'll be remembered forever. Like you'll be seen forever like that,
Yeah.
And it made me think, like, discovering some genealogy of your great great grandmother, and you pull it up and it's them being like, oh, I'm so happy that Martin Luther King Jr. died. And it's like, oh my gosh, like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying he
Yeah.
was a perfect guy, but it's like, you don't really want to see that, that's
Yeah.
kind of, a little too much. But it really is wild to see the negative side of it is crazy to watch. But then also seeing the positive side of it too is really incredible. The amount of people who are posting that they're going to church for the first time,
Yep.
or there's all these reels of people like saying, this one guy in particular, he's like, he just bought a suit for the first time in his life, and he's like, I'm going to go wear it at church this weekend. And it's like, wow, that's kind of incredible. So it's, I don't know, it's a very strange time. I feel like I'm still very kind of taken back by it, even after a few weeks now.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be honest, like, so I remember, and this is going to be one of those things, like, I hate to say it, but like, this is one of those events where you just remember where you were when this happened, kind of thing. And, I remember we were having kind of our weekly staff meeting that we have on Wednesdays. And, and I got the news that he had gotten shot. But, of course, in this day and age, you're like, okay, is he okay? Like, what happened? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Trump, they shot at his head and they got his ear. So you're like, okay, did they graze his ear? What happened?
Right. Yeah.
And I'll be honest, like, I didn't even mean to. I wanted to watch kind of a video of it, and I assumed that the video would be edited. It was not.
Yeah.
And, and I know that was true for a lot of people. Like, a lot of people saw something that they really didn't want to see. And I'll be honest, like, just watching that video really, yeah, I see. And here's the thing. In my line of work, it happens, right? Like, you're by somebody's bedside and they pass away.
Yeah.
It happens. It's not necessarily fun or exciting. It's actually very much not, and very
Right.
much the opposite. But at the same time, like, it comes with the territory. I am fine with that. Praying with fellow believers, and having a loved one pass away, like, I can handle that. But
Mm-hmm.
watching somebody get shot, to be honest, kind of messed with me a little bit.
I'm sure it did.
I didn't want to see what I saw. And I know a lot of people were in the same boat. Like, there was a lot of unedited videos that kind of came out, and you're just like, oh my gosh.
I've not seen it, and I've been I've purposely not tried to go near it. It's like, I know it's going to be bad. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, again, it's just, again, all of it just kind of, sends shockwaves and reverb and all that kind of stuff. Just, like, it ripples. Definitely something very, very stunning, and awful and atrocious. And, and again, we kind of approach this and say, okay, we're Christians. How do we handle this? First of all, I think, again, we just, first of all, we don't saint him. We look at the positives of his life. We look at the positive aspects of him as a Christian man, and we applaud those things that need applauding, and we, call out those things that need to be called out. But we don't necessarily make him a saint just because he was a public figure.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is we make sure that the politics don't become a God-breathed thing. Because again, God did not whisper down from heaven, you must be a Republican conservative. Now, that being said, if that's your political leanings, and I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. Again, I mean, like we've said before multiple times, like, you and I both kind of tend to lean on the more conservative side.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I just don't want to, while I would love it if, the political leaning said, oh yes, you Republicans, you guys get it all right. And I'd be like, yeah, I got it all right. But that's just not the reality. That's just not the truth. And some of the points that have been made on the other side are valid. And we can work and tease those out and try to figure those all out as we go. but we should all mourn the loss of life. And, Charlie was a man who was a Christian, and we're thankful for that, because that gives me comfort. Again, I've listened to him talk. I did not find anything in the speeches that he gave about his Christianity that would necessarily make me think that he wasn't a Christian. I would say it like that. Everything I heard of him, you know, seems to be that he is a good Christian man, which means I can actually believe that he's in the arms of his Savior, and that's a very comforting thing. To die in such a horrible way, at least I can kind of rest a little bit on that, because again, I don't applaud anybody's death, especially not like that. If somebody else on the other side of the aisle was to get shot, I would not be applauding. I would not be happy.
Right. And that's yeah, for sure. I don't think any of us want to see that. I hope not. I mean, I know there's some people who get really riled up, and there's some people who are posting stuff that's like them holding one of their big, guns or something and saying like, well, if we need to take out, the Democrat, it's like, no, don't, stop. Yeah. That's not what it is. We don't need to do that. And I think that, really, I don't know how many people, or if you've watched the memorial service or any bits of it or not.
Yeah, I've seen little snippets. I'll be honest. I know it was streamed, like 100 million people like watched it.
Yeah,
and
massive.
And there was like 200,000 people that were there, and so yeah.
They filled up 2 stadiums. Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, and the thing that a lot of people, especially, I mean, even Christians, I don't know if they would recognize this. I think I definitely do, because I am so involved in music in church. But the people who were leading worship there, like they had worship basically the moment people walked in. They had a worship service, and the people who were on stage it was like 6 or 7 huge names in the contemporary Christian music world currently. Okay. I mean, honestly, I was thinking about the fact of, if you actually paid to go to that concert, it would be, I can't even imagine how much those people would have typically charge for it, because they're all, I mean, Phil Wickman was one of them, and Phil Wickman's done, I mean, he's definitely done songs you've heard of before.
Oh, I know the name.
Yeah, Brandon Lake, he's kind of the newest sort of up and coming guy. Very, he did the song Gratitude and a bunch of songs that are starting to get very big. Carrie Jobe and Cody Carnes. Carrie Jobe is the one who her big hit was The Blessing, which has been around for quite a while now. But her and her husband are both huge artists, and they were doing. And then of course they had Chris Tomlin there. Chris Tomlin's like kind of he was probably the oldest guy there, but he was. I mean, really, it was like the fact that if they had one of those people, it'd be impressive. You know what I mean? It's like, oh wow, Brandon Lake's playing. That's amazing. But the fact that he's sitting there and has got Phil Wickman next to him and Carrie Jobe and all these people, it's really, I mean, to me, I understand how logistically difficult that is to put together, but also just the fact that they all wanted to be there is, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's kind of a crazy thing, because I think a lot of people, you look at it and you're like, wow, that's really cool. But it's like, I don't think you understand the amount of like success that those people have had, and how hard it would be to get those six or seven people all together for one, like event like this. That's just, it's really pretty incredible, honestly. And I've actually watched a lot more of the worship portion of it than the like speeches, but
sure.
I mean, and I've seen a few interviews with those people since. I mean, it was pretty recent, and you can tell that even for them, they've toured the world doing this. I don't know each of them specifically where they stand, because a lot of times there's a little bit of rumors about how, if some of those artists really are as Christian as they claim to be. but you can tell from their interviews, it's like this was something they've never experienced. This was like an unbelievable day for them. Like they just didn't, so many people there for this really, sad occasion, and just worshiping for like hours and hours as they waited for speakers. I don't know. It was pretty interesting to see, and I didn't know if everybody noticed who was actually on the stage or not, but
it's nice to have somebody in the biz, to know what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I saw the first thing. I'm like, wow, Brandon Lake, that's amazing. And I see Carrie Job, and I was like, Carrie Job, wow. It's just like, I couldn't believe it. And then, unbelievable.
So I didn't get a chance to watch it. I watched bits and pieces of it. We live in a TikTok world. I always hate saying this, but it's like, I live in a world where I just don't watch that much TV, and I don't get online near as much. It's so funny because I'm like such a techie guy, but I'm hardly ever on Facebook. I'm hardly ever, I spend a lot of time on my computer, but almost none of it is done in social media, or just watching TV. I watch some TikTok and stuff before I go to bed. So I catch little bits and pieces of it. And again, the same thing with Charlie Kirk himself. Like, again, I'd watch little bits and pieces here and there and yada, yada, yada. And then it was like, then after he passed, then I watched some more longer form stuff. So I could actually kind of capture and listen to him, in long form. And I think that's actually something that's really important for us, especially as just people trying to dissect all of this. That's just important for us to do. But I know a lot of people did watch it, and I'm happy that they did. I think it was a very moving and emotional experience for a lot of people. And, and again, kind of like a lot of people have said, Christ was proclaimed and 100 million people just heard it,
Yes.
Now a lot of them probably had heard it before, but who knows? God does what he wills, and his spirit works how it wills. And that's kind of the thing. And of course, the big one with that was the speech that Erica gave, where she said she forgave the young man who killed her husband. And, and I'll be honest, I've talked to a lot of people about this, like, do you think she really did it? Do you think she really forgave him? And I mean, and it is one of those things like, hey, I don't know a person, and I don't know what's in their heart, and I don't know. I personally would be shocked if she can really just let go that fast. Just from, our own experiences, our own life experiences, like my guess is she's still reeling from the tragedy and will be, for some time. But that being said, like she's definitely heading in the direction that, I think as a Christian is a good one to take,
Yeah. Well, and, sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
I was thinking my first thought is I kind of thought the same idea of like, I bet a lot of people aren't going to believe that she's telling the truth on that, because a lot of people probably can't fathom, like, how could you forgive this person? And I understand it. And I think if there is sort of this feeling of like, maybe she hasn't completely gotten there, but she's trying to get there, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
But the other thought I had is if she really doesn't want to forgive him, if she wants to, cause a, some sort of revolution against, the like atheists or against the left or something, this would have been the time to like call people to arms. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And she didn't. She didn't do that. And so I kind of feel like whether or not she is completely in that headspace yet, I feel like she didn't go for violence, and she didn't tell people to go after the people who've wronged you. And it's like, I would understand her being that angry.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I kind of have that feeling of like, I don't know if she's there yet 100%, but it seems like she chose the path of, kindness over like resentment and all that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's, I guess that's maybe a better way of trying to put what I said, trying to that's a better way of saying what I was trying to say, I guess, is a way to put it. Because again, I just don't know if she's truly in a spot where she can fully let go. I don't think she's really in a spot yet to fully comprehend all of this. I mean, it's just so overwhelming right now. It has got to be. But at the same time, she's, they asked her what she wanted to do, like if she wanted him dead, in the trial and stuff, and she kind of said, "Hey, I'll let the courts do what the courts do, but I don't wish it," and it's kind of, she's done a lot of things that have moved her in the right direction. And, as long as she's not doing this for some kind of a political stunt, then I would say that everything she said, taking her at her word, which is, kind of what we're supposed to do with the eighth commandment, I would say she's definitely heading in the right space. It's going to be a long road. There's just no doubt it's going to be a long road.
It is.
And I'll pray for her and those two little ones that I mean, I just can't even imagine. But I do know that she seems to be making a lot of steps in the right direction, and hopefully she's got a really good support network around her that can guide her with her little ones. Because again, that's hard, man. That's hard. So.
Oh yeah. I think the thing I take away from all of it more than anything is I kind of don't even care about I don't really care about the politics that much, because it's like, and I think one thing that I heard a lot of videos and a lot of things from Charlie Kirk talking was that he always considered himself a Christian first.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was his primary. He did not say I'm a conservative and a Christian. It's like, I'm a Christian. That's the bottom line. That's what I am. And that's how I live my life. And then, like, in a lot of the times when he would get in debates with people, they would say, so you view these things because you're a Christian? And he said, well, yeah, I mean, that's my lens that I look through the world. But everything that I debate, I debate it through other logic and other research. He never said, oh, well, you shouldn't, abortion shouldn't be happening because that's what God intended. He never used that as a,
Trump.
The point.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was never the point of why you shouldn't do it. There was always a whole list of like other things. So it was kind of like, yeah, he's a Christian, and that's what he believes. Maybe that's where it started, but he was like, I have to prove this outside of Christianity. But that's why for me, I kind of separate. It's like, for Christianity, he really stood up and he encouraged people to get married and have kids and, live a life that isn't about themselves and all those things. And that's not, maybe that's not possible for everybody, or it's not or whatever. But I think that's really kind of admirable, because I mean, I just think about my life, and I am so grateful for my kids and everything I've been blessed with. And, when people act like he was trying to force something horrible on them by saying they should get married or they should have kids or, go to church. It's like, no, I know what it's like to have all those things happen, and your life, you find a lot of meaning in your life when those things happen. And so I don't know. And it just has gotten me. I think a lot of people that I know have been very quiet about their faith, because in the last, I don't know, 5-6 years maybe, or I don't know, it's been a lot of anger and like hate online. People get very fired up if you start to talk about your faith. And
yes,
I kind of stopped. I stopped really posting about it or saying anything about it, because I just thought, I don't need to upset anybody. I know what I believe. That's good enough for me, sort of idea. And this whole thing really, I kind of realized that there's people who are saying some outlandish things, because I don't think they realize that there are Christians in their friends list on Facebook. I don't think they realize that they're surrounded by Christians, because a lot of us are being pretty quiet about it. And so they say something, they post something horrible, and I just scroll past it. I'm not going to engage, because I don't want to get in a fight. I don't want to upset anybody. And I'm realizing that they kind of thought, oh, there's no Christians here.
Yeah.
And that's not true. And so I was just going to share, because I did ask your permission about this, but a couple weeks ago, because I made a video because I just felt really like, okay, I just need to be upfront that and say I'm a Christian. And even though like most people know that because I work at a church, but there's some people, I got to be honest, there are some people who kind of assume I'm not a Christian. They just kind of assume that, oh, well, you do music at a church, it's a job.
Yeah.
And they don't realize like, no, I actually have always been a Christian my whole life. Like I do believe in this. So it's kind of interesting that sometimes people just assume because I think they don't see me. Maybe it's because they don't see me post much about it. But I told the story, which I've told on this podcast before. But of course, I haven't really said it. It's kind of kept to St. John's.
Yeah.
But I told a story that I've said before about the pastor who took advantage of me and lied to me and did a bunch of stuff to try to get me to work for him for free, basically. And I didn't think of it as like, I need to tell this story to like get it off my chest. I'm kind of over that. But I just thought, you know what? I want to point out that here's this guy who used horrible, horrible things and lied and did all this stuff to manipulate people using religion. And then I brought up you and I said, and then these years later, got this job and I met Pastor Chris and like this podcast started from us just sitting around like on Wednesday nights and I would ask you questions.
Yeah. Right.
And I really truly think you're just like a super great guy and you just like, you truly love studying the Bible. And I've never known you to ever manipulate somebody for, any personal gain or use religion or the Bible as a weapon to manipulate people. And so my point was just like, okay, both of these men have access to the same Bible. There's no difference. So is it Christianity that is teaching someone to be horrible, or is it the person who's not taking it seriously? It was kind of my point.
Yeah.
And I did not expect, because I posted that, what I didn't expect to happen was the secretary and the head elder of that church that I was at, where that guy was. They both private messaged me, and they were like, they didn't know what really happened, and so it was kind of like an eye opening. They knew that he had manipulated people because all this stuff. He got fired years later because they found out he had been having an affair and all this other stuff. And they found out, and then once he was gone, all these stories started coming out about how he was manipulating people. And so they were like, we're so sorry. We should have looked into it and we didn't. It's all our fault. And I was like, no, this is not your fault. I never considered it your fault. It was nothing like that. But it was really I didn't expect that at all. And also, somebody that I used to be very close with, who was kind of involved in this church and all the situation, we have not talked in about four years or so. We had a big falling out. He said a lot of really nasty things to me, and he actually messaged me and kind of apologized a little bit about it, because he was kind of the person who introduced us, me and this pastor.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so, I messaged him back, and I haven't talked to him in a long time. And I messaged him back and kind of said, like, I know you had a lot of things he manipulated too, and I feel for you and all that stuff. And he has not responded to that.
Sure.
But it was, I don't know. It's just kind of interesting because I thought, wow, I finally posted something or said something, and look at these things that happened, Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny because the people who messaged me, they're also married, by the way, the elder and the secretary. And like my wife teaches their grandkids.
Really?
And we see them all the time, and I really like them, but it's like, now that's kind of, I guess, off my chest a little bit, and I wasn't doing it for that intent.
Yeah.
It's just kind of I don't know. It's like, man, I can't believe I just said something, I came out with something, and it was like, I didn't realize how therapeutic it was in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, wow, it kind of resolved a few things that I didn't even think I needed, really.
Yeah.
But it was nice to talk to them and, kind of have a little bit of a conversation about it, because they also were hurt too. And I didn't really ever think of that either,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
And I
don't know.
think a
It's
lot of times that's the way these stories go, is like there's a lot of other sides and aspects to things that you just don't think about, because in your wheelhouse it's not, you just haven't been thinking like that. So yeah,
yeah.
it's always interesting to see how it all kind of ripples out, and finding out that there's a lot more sides to it than maybe what you first thought.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. It's something where I am somebody who doesn't like to just talk to. Well, okay, I have a problem with talking. I'll admit to that. I wish I could shut up, but when it comes to posting stuff, I don't feel a need to just like post something every day just to post something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not. I haven't posted anything else, but I'm kind of like I'm now feeling like I need to, when I really feel like I have something to say as far as Christianity goes,
Yeah.
and declaring my faith that I am a Christian. I'm like, I need to be more blunt about that. I need to like let people know that I am a Christian, because yeah, I've had people in my band who come every single week, and I'll see them post stuff about, oh, these horrible Christians and they're all a bunch of this and that and hypocrites and everything. And I think, how you come to my home every week, I welcome you in with open
Yeah.
arms. I joke with you. I ask you how you're doing. And it's like, and you're sitting here saying all Christians are horrible. And it's like, why would, if I was so horrible, why would I let you come to my home? And so, and again, I just don't think they really understood that I took my faith really seriously. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And that's exactly right. There's a lot of people that don't. And I mean, and again, we keep talking about Facebook and posting and stuff like this. And it's like, I mean, I've never been a person that posts a whole lot on Facebook. I've, whenever, and I'll be honest, I'll date myself a little bit, like whenever I remember when, it was basically MySpace,
Yeah,
and
MySpace.
we used to post stuff, and I used to get into debates back then. I was actually on this other one that was kind of a, I don't know if it was a precursor, if it came out at the same time and it just didn't make it, and it was called High Five.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and I was on High Five a lot, and I used to post, very, very much, kind of a, just very much was very public with my Christian faith. Um, and then over the years, I think I've just gotten into so many debates over so much useless junk that it was just like, after a while, it's kind of like, every now and again I'll get a picture taken or post a picture, and it's, you know, I get the joy of wearing a clerical, and if people don't know what that means, then we got a whole other issue going on. But like, and I get to list that I'm a pastor of a Lutheran church, but there
Yeah.
are definitely some times where I do wonder, like, should I post more? Should I do more? But at the same time, it's like, I think the online world especially can be so toxic, just so toxic.
It's very
Uh,
toxic, yeah.
and
And
so,
I say that as someone who, like, I do social media
yeah,
as a job, it's the sad thing is when things actually go like viral, quote unquote, the nastier the comments get,
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those things. Like, I don't hesitate to, talk to the church group, or I guess it kind of comes like this. Like, I remember I went to an evangelism conference years ago, and one of the things that the guys said is like, you're never going to have like just a random Facebook post that's going to, convert people. Um,
Right.
You need to, you're planting the seeds of the Holy Spirit through your word, by preaching and proclaiming his word. And, a lot of times what really helps with people is to be able to be around them or with them, to be a friend, basically. And he says, he always said, like, that's the good thing about Facebook, is like, you can be friends with a lot of people, even if they're very, very far away. You can still be friends with them on Facebook. And I've always taken that to heart, and I've always, gotten on Facebook, and there for a long time, that was kind of how I used Facebook, was just to, you know, talk to my friends, or kind of maintain some of those relationships. But honestly, even now, like, Facebook has gotten so full of ads, it's like it's hard to even do that.
Oh, yeah.
and
It's crazy.
and then there's Instagram, but it's hard to do it on Instagram. And then there's all these others, and it's like, and then it's just gotten so muddy, the water has. I've thought about doing TikToks, but then I've never done that either.
Yeah.
But but again, I don't know. Like I kind of go back and forth. That maybe one day I'll start posting some more, but for the time being, I think I'm just going to avoid basically getting into a bunch of online arguments, which just take a lot of time for no reason.
Well, and I don't want to, I don't really want to get into online arguments. And of course,
nobody does. Okay, wait, no, I need to take that back. There are some people that do, in fact, that's what they live for.
Oh no, I had somebody who it's, somebody I know that I'm like, I don't know, it's a long story, but they started commenting on my post, and they just, they're just trying to stir the pot. It's really, I'm fine if someone really wants to have an honest discussion. It's like, okay, especially about faith, like if you're like struggling or something, but when you're just trying to, and I hate when people, the one thing this guy loves to do is he'll say something, he'll try to get off on some political argument, and then if you say like something about like, well, like something about like the riots, he'll go, what riots? And he'll go, oh my gosh, please don't do this. And then he'll be like, no, tell what riots are. And it's like, we all know what we're talking about. Like, stop doing this. And then, well, can you source something? It's like, that's what drives me nuts. Cause it's like, okay, you're just playing games. I'm not doing that. It's like, so that gets really frustrating online. But, I think I realize more, I don't want to post, for the sake of like, especially when people start thinking that their opinion is really, really important. That's when it gets rough. But I think I realized that I need to post more so that people just know that like I'm there. Like, especially if anybody is kind of struggling or thinking about their faith more, I'm here if you need someone to talk to. And if oh, that guy's a Christian and he and he posts stuff from time to time, maybe that'll be helpful. Again, I'm not trying to get into a debate, and I'm not really like attacking anybody or telling anybody, what they should do. I'm more like, kind of thinking I have some stories maybe I should share that might, somebody might take to it, or someone might just know that I'm there. So I don't know. I social media, I think so much about this, to be honest, because of doing a YouTube channel and everything. And the people I know that once they kind of start doing it as a job, I feel like their content kind of goes way downhill as far as quality and integrity, because it's like, well, I know I can get views if I just do this.
Sure.
And it might not even be what they actually love to talk about or do, but they just think, okay, well, I'm going to make a lot of money doing this, so I'm just going to do that. And I feel like they kind of lose their, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's not really what you like talking about, but if it's all about the money, then that's what you'll do. And a lot of times drama brings in the cash and the views. So sometimes it's like, if I just do a video where I'm stirring the pot and upsetting people, or bringing up something horrible that some person did, that's going to get me more views. So they just stick with that,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hate to, it's funny because like when we first started, I was like, well, we probably won't have time. I'll be honest. I told you we weren't probably going to have time for like the no such thing as a dumb question. Probably weren't going to have time for the lectionary loop, and some of that, by the way, even though the lectionary loop is kind of our new thing, the reality is that because of Consecration Sunday, we've kind of shifted a few of our text, and so and then plus with all this other stuff going on, I knew we weren't going to have time for that, but I wanted to make sure that we at least made time, because again, I really have been liking our Lives of the Saints segment. So in order to cut back and have a little bit of time for that, it's now time for And Now Life and Times of the Saints. Now you're gonna have to remind me, Casey, did I get the right one? Did I hit the right button?
You did. You got it. Yeah. I was about to go and go because I knew you couldn't hear it.
Yeah. I'm like over here going, I really hope. I forgot I couldn't hear that until just now. But anyway, so, all right. So let's go for tonight. All right. It doesn't take much imagination to think about the sun coming over the hills and hitting you just right. The kind of thing that just warms you up after a cold night. And in this case, it takes place in the spur of a boot. Well, that's one way to put it. It is the spur on the Italian boot, the land that makes the spur. A beautiful little area known as Gargana. At least I think that's how you pronounce it. If you were to visit, you would find woods, some ancient fossils that make up the last of the great woods that used to cover Italy and much of Europe. That is all forgotten now. You would find beaches and a beautiful view of the Mediterranean Sea. Once there, you would also find a church. And in fact, it is the church that make up what we're talking about today. You see, while on September 29th, we have a celebration to think about, the truth is that our story all starts not with a man, but with a church. A church that was built and was completed in 493 AD, at the tail end of the 5th century. The church was fairly popular, and the name, well, it hit a nerve. And so every year we celebrate the opening of this church. Of course, why would we do that? Don't get me wrong, I've never been to the spur of Italy, but I've seen pictures. It is gorgeous. But it is nothing that I want to commemorate every single year. But it wasn't just the church. It was the name they chose for the church. It was what it represented and what it became, not just the church, but the name itself. I mean, when do you have a day to celebrate a person who is not dead? When do you set a day to celebrate a person who is not a person? Or several people who are not people? I'll tell you what you do. You wait until they name a church after it. At least, that is what our ancestors did. And that is what we do. We call him Saint Michael. But it really isn't a saint. It is Michael, the archangel. Michael, whom God commanded to cast Satan out of heaven, as depicted in the book of Revelation, who is depicted usually smashing the head of the devil with a spear in his hand. But not just Michael, but Michael and all angels. So around this time of year, when the sunlight starts to wane, when darkness creeps ever further into our days, we pray that God would protect us, that he send his angels to guard us. Angels like Michael. Angels that are not necessarily sweet and fluffy, but warriors that are good and righteous. Warriors that do the will of God. Thus was born something that became known as Michaelmas, or the Mass of Michael, all to commemorate Saint Michael and what's depicted in Revelation, that Michael would cast Satan from heaven, and also, at least for you now, to know that it was also the completion of St. Michael's Church in Gorgana, Italy, right on the spur of the boot. All right, so I thought that was fun, so I'm glad I got to share. September 29th. So the traditional thing for St. Michael's Day, or Michaelmas, as some people call it. By the way, Michaelmas is the Mass or service of Michael. Now, what that means is not a service that worships Michael, but again, a service that is basically, in essence, kind of dedicated to that thought, where you read a lot of the scriptures that deal with God himself, commanding the archangels and the angels, and basically God casting Satan from heaven. And so those are a lot of times something that you do. Even the Lutheran traditions seem to accept St. Michael's Day, St. Michael's and all angels, on September 29th. Traditionally, if you were to really celebrate it, you would actually eat a goose.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right? Got to have a goose. Now, I looked up some recipes for St. Michael's Day, and the big one I saw was actually a recipe for orange duck.
Ooh.
So I thought it sounded pretty good. So if you have a duck, look up a good recipe for an orange duck. I'm not gonna give us a list of recipes and stuff. And then the drink of the day, the cocktail, if you will, is something called St. Michael's Sword. And again, this is from the book Drinking with the Saints, and it's and I'm just gonna let you know, it's 1.5 ounces of Jim Beam's. That's the Devil Cut bourbon. Half or 3/4 of an ounce.
The Devil Cut bourbon.
Yeah, Devil's Cut. Have you never heard that?
No, but you can't make a dinner with the Saints with Devil's Cut bourbon, can you?
Oh yeah. Because again, Saint Michael crushed the devil.
Okay.
So 3/4 ounce blackberry brandy, 2 dashes of orange bitters, and 1 cherry for garnish. Now, actually, it's really funny because like Jim Beam. So the Devil's Cut, it's really interesting. So whenever they make bourbon, they put it in the barrels, and some of it gets lost to evaporation. The barrels can't hold it all. Some of it gets lost to evaporation, and that's called the angel's share. And so if it's lost to evaporation, it's called the angel's share because it's like the angel just took it right out of the barrel. There's another part that is stingily taken by the barrel itself because the barrel soaks up the bourbon, and that's called the Devil's Cut. So you have the angel's share and the Devil's Cut. Now, with the Jim Beam Devil's Cut, I believe it's just a bourbon that's actually incredibly strong in like the oak or wood department, and a little charred, a little burned. Yeah. So anyway, so there you go. That drink is called St. Michael's Sword. So there you have it. The big celebration of St. Michael and All Angels Day.
I think hearing the fact that they call it the Angel's Cut or the Angel's what?
Yeah, so they have the Angel's Share and then the Devil's Cut.
That's the Angel's Share thing. That's like one of the coolest things I've ever heard. That's just such a cool like way to put it. Like, oh yeah, that's the Angel's Share.
Oh man, look, we're gonna make a bourbon drinker out of you yet.
You know what I was thinking, which I hope this doesn't sound like I wasn't paying attention, but I was thinking, if we were some like big production, what would be really funny is if every single episode we like had that drink whatever you talked about, and you would be like, oh man, I like the taste of that, and then I would drink it and go, oh, that's horrible every single time. I'd be like, oh, it's so nasty. Oh, I can't do that. That would be fun. It'd just be a nice little back and forth,
Yeah. We do this remotely more or less anymore, but there will come a time where I will be back at your house, and now I know exactly what I'm going to do. So
yeah, I just feel bad because we'd have to be like a podcast that makes a lot of money so that we're not wasting all that liquor and stuff. Because I've had people try to get me to like a drink, and it never worked. I'm always just like, yeah, okay, and they're like, you don't like it, do you? I'm like, I don't. I'm sorry.
Hey man, it's not for everybody, and that's fine. Yeah. Absolutely fine. Like some people can't do it because they don't like the flavor. Some people can't do it because they have like that addictive nature in them and they can't control themselves. And it's like, so definitely alcohol is definitely not for everybody. If you struggle with alcohol, it's not for you. And if you just don't like the flavor of it, man, don't drink stuff you don't like. That's fine.
Yeah.
So
I don't typically,
Yeah.
But I just thought that would be fun every single time.
It would be just really
like,
funny.
I can't. Oh, that burns my throat. Yeah.
Oh, this is so atrocious. Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I think that leads us to the next section. Now, here's the thing. You're going to have to tell me if I hit the right button. So here we go.
All right. I'm ready. To our last segment, probably.
All right. Are we ready for Church Chatter? Oh, we got it. Nice. All right. Yay. So anyway, so it's time for Church Chatter. Honestly, so our big thing this coming Sunday is it's Consecration Sunday, which is kind of our big stewardship Sunday. We have our big German feast after the second service, so definitely looking forward to that. Great time, good meal, and then we're heading into October, which honestly I just like fall. So
me too.
we got the Toy and Hobby Show coming up on November 2nd. We're also looking forward to Harvest Fest, but I'll be honest, I don't think I've put an official date on the calendar. So I'm kind of looking at the second week of November, to be fair. But I don't know if I've officially marked that down yet. So Harvest Fest is coming. I can say that, right? It's coming. Dun, 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 dun. So what's going on over there in your neck of the woods?
Well, first I want to ask you a question. What exactly, because you had the first toy and collection and toy
Toy and Hobby Show.
Toy and Hobby Show. What exactly happened during that last year? I know we probably talked about it at the time, but
yeah, we had some train sets. Some kids brought some like Pokemon cards and some other stuff. It's honestly one of the great things about the event is that it's so intergenerational. Like if you're somebody who's a little older and you got like a collection of something that you've been like grabbing or collecting since you were a little kid or even as an adult, like you can come and share that with everybody. And again, we had I know we had Pastor Miller there with his big train set.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that was really cool. And then, at the same time, it was like, again, one of the kids brought his Pokemon cards. It was like, here's his collection. And I think that's really cool. And one of these days, I'm going to convince you to show up with at least some of your Power Rangers.
I know. Day. I just have so many. I know.
I
was because when you just mentioned that, I'm like, oh, maybe I need to do it this year. But I'm also like, how am I going to pack all that up and bring it over and display it and all that stuff? So
yeah, that you do have quite the collection. I know, I've seen it. So, but
it's pretty crazy. But
yeah,
it is a cool sounding event. It sounds really fun.
It is, and it's for young and old alike. It's for everybody, and I just love that aspect of it. So, yeah. So I don't have any toy collections of my own end. So
now, do you collect anything?
Honestly,
besides books.
Well, and I was just about to say that. Like, honestly, I don't. I collect books, of course. I would love, in fact, I really would love to get into collecting like rare books and unique books. And I do have a few. Not many, not enough to really be like, oh, this is a big collection. But like, for instance, I have a Hebrew book, a Hebrew Bible, in fact, that honestly, I forget where I even got it. I honestly don't know where I got it. I don't know if somebody gave it to me or if somebody had like a free bookshelf and I just grabbed it because it was Hebrew and I was like, hey, I can read Hebrew. And I looked it up and like the last one sold at auction for like $800-900. And
wow.
So yeah, so it's like I got a couple books like that. I think that's probably my most valuable one, really. I have another Bible that I bought when I was in seminary, and I bought it and it was $116 when I bought it because I remember that was the most I'd ever paid for a Bible in my life. Yeah. And depending, the market for that particular book seems to go in flux. And what I mean by that is I've been online and seen people try to charge $9,000-10,000 for it. And then I come in the next day and it's like people are selling it for $50. So it's it's like depending on the day of the week, it can be valuable, I guess, if you're following the particulars of the market. But so I have a few books like that, but I don't know if they would constitute a collection. Like when you only have like 2 or 3 of them, I don't know if that's really a collection.
Right.
But at the same time, like I guess I have some old books and unique books. And I'd love to get into that a little bit more. I even thought about maybe downsizing my actual library so that I can invest more in more valuable and more rare books. But again, I think that's a I don't want to say a pipe dream, but if anything, that'd be like maybe like something the 70-year-old me does.
Right.
Assuming I can actually even afford to do such a thing, but at the same time, like, yeah. So no, I don't know if I have any real collections, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe I wish I did, but I don't. So.
Yeah. Well, as far as you were asking, sorry I cut you off, but you were asking about our Savior with everything going on there. We still got a call committee looking at prospects and everything, and then we just had interviews for a new secretary because we've been a month or two without with our other secretary had left. So we had some interviews, and I got to be in the interviews with that.
Okay.
And so I think we're gonna have we'll see who if the person we were picking is gonna take it or not. But if they do, I'm very excited. I think they're gonna be outstanding and really be a huge help to the church. So it'd be nice. We're kind of starting to build a little bit of a team now, even though we don't have a pastor. Where they hired a guy to do sound, and that's been nice to have, because we really haven't had anybody running the soundboard. So that's been a plus. And then now getting a secretary in there who I think is So we're kind of moving along. We switched over to a new system for our slides and everything. So I'm in the middle of I'm kind of looking through the music library and trying to figure out what songs maybe are not ones we want to continue doing, and maybe adding in some songs that we haven't really had in there yet. So I'm kind of doing a lot of that right now.
Well, all right. That sounds fun. That sounds exciting.
Yeah.
So, well, all right then. Well, anything else for the good of the group? Because I'll be honest, I don't know if I have any more to say. So
no, I think that's pretty much it. It was, yeah.
All right. Well, I think again, we're 1 hour and 11 minutes. So I mean, it's a lengthy one for us.
This is a big one. Yeah,
that's a big one. So, all right. So that's all that I have the time for. So God's blessings to everybody, wherever you are, day, night, morning, whatever. So bye.
Bye.